ATRIOX, leader of the Banished, unbreakable will, boundless strength. Tartarus, commander of the Covenant military, cruel and zealous, herald of the prophets. Today, we look at two of the most formidable brutes known to the Halo canon. These warriors are both exceptionally powerful, influential, and strong-willed. So, who would emerge as the champion in a one-on-one battle to the death? Let's begin by looking at the personal prowess, armor, and weapons of both combatants. Starting with ATRIOX, we know that even without his augmented armor, he was and is a tenacious and resilient fighter. Time and again he returned from missions where all of his comrades died, in battle strategies which deliberately sent Jiralhanae to their deaths. This fact speaks greatly in his favor, as brutes are naturally hardy and difficult to kill creatures. It is also implied in the 4th issue of Rise of ATRIOX that he was able to overpower the crew of the Enduring Conviction assault carrier with only a small force, though Let Valir may have assisted him with this. He had no issue defeating all 3 members of Spartan Red Team simultaneously, and likely would have killed them if he believed it to be worth the effort. All in all, he is a terrifying sight on the battlefield. Moving on to intelligence, ATRIOX is very perceptive, being able to make efficient use of the personal tendencies and desires of potential recruits, in such cases as the Silent Shadow Spec Ops group and Shipmaster Let Valir, as well as manipulate foes of the Banished, as with Sig Ron and the brute chieftain Jovis. Although he did not seem to have been shrewd enough to defeat the forces of the UNSC Spirit of Fire, he is still an extremely intelligent and dangerous individual. ATRIOX's personal armament includes a cobbled-together battlesuit which has pieces of UNSC make, and more notably, a powered gauntlet on his right arm which boosts his already incredible strength. His weapon of choice is his customized gravity mace, given the pertinent title of Chainbreaker. Like the Type 2 energy weapon, it possesses a gravitic impeller which can attract and presumably repel both objects and persons, especially persons wearing Mjolnir armor. When activated, Chainbreaker sports 3 blood-red energy blades, 2 of which I would like to believe were taken from the Executor's energy sword. Though it may not be the most graceful weapon, it serves its purpose well. Next up, we have Tartarus, a dangerous brute to be sure, but just how dangerous? The bulk of our knowledge of Tartarus' combat abilities, and the most relevant to the discussion, comes from the final level in Halo 2, where the Arbiter and Sergeant Major Avery Johnson have to defeat the Chieftain in order to deactivate Delta Halo. Tartarus is shown effortlessly killing waves of elites, some of them zealots, with his warhammer, the Fist of Rucht. Tartarus has little in the way of actual armor, only a bandolier strap, a large pauldron on his left shoulder, and a large metallic collar. In Halo 2 Anniversary, he also has a shoulder pad on his right arm. In addition to his thick Jiralhanae hide, his most powerful defense against damage is an extremely resistant, recharging energy shield. This energy shield is similar to the invulnerability used by brute chieftains in Halo 3 and ODST. In-game, only a particle beam rifle is capable of draining the shields to a point where Tartarus could be physically damaged. It is unclear if this one weakness is canonical or strictly for gameplay purposes. Nevertheless, his personal shielding is certainly strong and potentially invulnerable to numerous forms of attacks. Tartarus' weapon of choice is a deadly heirloom, the aforementioned Fist of Rucht. Passed down through his lineage by killing the current clan chieftain, the Fist of Rucht came to Tartarus when he killed his uncle, Maccabeus. The Prophet of Truth later had the Warhammer upgraded with gravity impellers, 2 on the back for extra boost during a swing, and 4 in the front for the general purpose of pulverizing anything in the hammer's way. It is an infamous and destructive tool, and the predecessor to the Type 2 gravity hammer. Moving on to intelligence, it can be said that Tartarus' influence was greater than his actual intellect. He gained the attention of Ord Casto, the High Prophet of Truth, for his steadfast devotion to the Great Journey and influence among the Jiralhanae. Truth sought for a way to put the brutes in a position of greater authority than the elites, and the resulting arrangement between Truth and Tartarus saw the brute chieftain promoted to commander of the entirety of the Covenant's Jiralhanae troops by 2552. Additionally, his part in the Prophet of Truth's designs allowed for expanded production of brute-based weaponry at the Sacred Promissory munitions factory. The task of branding Thel 'Vadami with the Mark of Shame also fell to Tartarus following Vadami's condemnation by the Prophets. During the battle for Earth, Tartarus brutes quickly and violently usurped many of the Sangheli who had been deployed during the initial invasion. He was also the one to capture 343 Guilty Spark and confiscate the activation index from the Arbiter, at the behest of the Hierarchs. Ultimately, however, Tartarus' inability to believe that the Prophets had lied to and betrayed the Covenant led to his demise. Now, having evaluated both prospective fighters, let's take the multiplayer map Gephrophobia, specifically the large bridge in the middle, as the dueling grounds. ATRIOX and Tartarus approach one another, yet neither have their weapons ready for fighting. Words come first. I think it's likely that ATRIOX would first try to persuade Tartarus to give up his beliefs in the Great Journey, to come and join him, and fight by his side, to see that their brothers had only been used by the prophets. But Tartarus would not be dissuaded from his devotion to the Covenant, and would condemn ATRIOX for his heresy. The leader of the Banished, realizing his opponent could not be brought to apostasy, would then unsling Chainbreaker and ignite its plasma blades. Tartarus would bring the Fist of Rucht to bear, utter some final threats of destruction, and charge toward ATRIOX. At this point, I believe the outcome of the fight is dependent on who hits first. If ATRIOX is able to block or otherwise dodge the swing from the Fist of Rucht, he'll have a good chance at striking Tartarus' flank with Chainbreaker. The energy blades on his mace should boost its effectiveness against the Brute Chieftain's shields, not to mention the sheer force of the impact it would have, even on Tartarus. If ATRIOX were able to damage or break Tartarus' shields, he would be well on his way to winning the battle, although Tartarus likely would take more than one direct hit to properly put down. Even though Tartarus probably stands back up after being hit, ATRIOX would now be in a position to step in and grab the Fist of Rucht. With his foe's weapon in hand, he could possibly rip the gravity hammer away from Tartarus with his powered gauntlet, or at least hold the hammer while striking Tartarus again, this time in the skull. Tartarus could possibly gain more time for himself by activating the gravity impellers in the fist, thus knocking ATRIOX away and giving the chieftain an opportunity to move in and strike. However, I believe that 7 times out of 10, ATRIOX's combination of Chainbreaker and Powered Gauntlet proves to be just too strong for Tartarus to overcome. With that said, in those instances when Tartarus does emerge victorious, I think that one good strike from the Fist of Rucht would essentially incapacitate ATRIOX, leaving him stunned at the least and likely badly wounded. This would probably occur if ATRIOX were too aggressive or hasty in engaging Tartarus, enabling the Brute to find some gap in his attack and strike true with the fist. Thus Tartarus could approach his dazed opponent, perhaps say some bitter eulogy, and crush his skull with the gravity hammer. It would also be very interesting if both combatants struck the other's weapon simultaneously, full force. Would the resulting impact destroy one or both weapons? Would there be an explosion, flinging both Jiralhanae away from the other? It's fun to think about, even if we only do have conjecture, or perhaps because we only have conjecture. Speaking of which, let me know down in the comments what you think would happen in a direct clash between the Fist of Rucht and Chainbreaker, and if there's anything you think I missed in the analysis, or if I misjudged either challenger's combat abilities. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and hit that subscribe button. Until next time.